Today, we're going to go over a concept that can really improve the performance of your applications as well as the UX. And I'm going to show this demonstration here in React.js, actually a Next.js application, but just know this is generally applicable to your web applications and anytime you're making requests. So we have this search bar here, and when I search for a word, it's going to be making requests to an endpoint. The endpoint I'm using here is JSON placeholder API. It's a great test API that you can use for your apps, but this would even be relevant if, you're hitting any sort of API when doing some sort of search feature or really making requests in general based on like user interaction here. So I'm going to start typing here, and I'm trying to remember what some of the titles of these posts are, but I think if I search for Magnum, you see some different posts come up, and that has no meaning whatsoever. It's just some random text that is generated from this API. But what you're going to see in my network tab over here is that for every character I type, we make a new request. And this is still true, even if I type pretty fast. So I type everything at once there. You can still see I make a separate network request for every character I type, which is probably not what you want. And it's especially not what you want if there is some variability in how long these requests take place. So for example, if this first request takes 26 milliseconds, but the second one takes 13 milliseconds, there could actually be a slight difference in what is shown to the user. So for example, they might type MA, but see the results of just typing M because of the difference in slight variations in network requests. Now, are you going to notice a difference here in 13 milliseconds? No, you're not. But if the network was slower or things were set up a little bit differently here, this could be an issue. And also, it's generally not the best practice here, especially if the user is typing everything at once, to make several different network requests for every character they type. And a better approach is probably to do something around debouncing, which is the idea that if the user continuously is typing characters, then you only make a network request once they've stopped typing for a certain amount of time. And this is actually pretty straightforward to implement. So if we come back to the code here, what you're seeing is me rendering this search bar on my homepage. Now, if we look at the search bar, basically every time a query changes, we're going to trigger this use effect and we make a request, a fetch request to this external API with the query. And then we render the results down below. But instead of doing this, what is probably a better solution is using this debounced search bar, in which we still have this very similar use effect going on, but instead of just using the query, we use the debounced query to trigger when we want to make a network request and show the results. And this debounced query is assigned to the return value of our use debounce function. And for this custom hook that I've created here, and just know that you can find some of these hooks out of the box. I'm not saying this is the best way to implement this. This is just kind of conceptually speaking what this kind of looks like. But for this, it accepts a value and a delay. And basically, based on the value and the delay, it's going to set this debounced value, and it's only going to change this debounced value when this amount of time has cleared out. So it sets a timer for 500 milliseconds, and when that time has run out, then it will return a new value here. And then when a new value is returned here, it's going to then change this debounce query value because a new value is returned. It's going to see this in the use effect, and then it's indeed going to trigger another network request here. So effectively, and again, I'm not saying this is the best way to implement this, but conceptually speaking, it's only going to make a request once the user has stopped typing for about 500 milliseconds, because then the debounce query is going to change after that amount of time, and we are going to make this request again. So in my homepage, if I switch this to using my debounced search bar instead of my search bar here, and I come back and I'm gonna refresh, I'm gonna clear the console, and then I'm going to search the same thing, we see that we only make one network request once the user has stopped typing and once 500 milliseconds has gone by. Now, you could, of course, tweak this delay. Maybe for your application, it looks better if you just wait 200 milliseconds or even 100 milliseconds. That's totally fine. But conceptually speaking, if we type in the full word and we type it continuously, we only make the request after we have typed in pretty much the entire word, rather than making the request after each character. Or more precisely, we only make the request after 500 milliseconds have gone by from typing a character. And then here in our network tab, you can see we're making much less requests here. Now, if the user just types one character and they wait 500 milliseconds and they type another character and they wait, we'll make requests for every character. But if they type in continuously, we're only going to make that request after they finish typing for a little bit, which is probably the user experience that you want for a feature like this. So if you have a feature similar to this where you're kind of triggering network requests based on the user typing something into an input or something to that effect, consider debouncing that search input. So instead of making a network request on every single character that the user types, you're waiting a certain amount of time for them to stop typing to then make your network request. And this could really improve your performance, improve the UX, and just prevent, if it's your API that you're calling, prevent a lot of requests and load being added to your server.